As of 2018, 26% of the people around the world had installed and downloaded meditation apps. Hello to you. My name is Tracy Kababito. I'm your host. This is Refined for the Mind. On today's episode of Refined for the Mind, we are going to be talking about meditation. Meditation, but we are going to just explore one part of meditation or one kind of practice of meditation. But before that, let's think about what we talked about last week. For everyone that's new here, last week we talked about knowing thyself. We talked about identity. So if you haven't yet listened to the episode, please just go back and listen to it, because this is essential to personal development. This is essential to everything that we are going to talk about going forward. But on today's episode, let's talk about meditation. So what is meditation? Meditation is the ability to focus one's mind and body in the present moment. It can be for purposes of calm and clarity. It can also be for purposes of, religious practices or spiritual practices. But today in particular, we're going to talk about one specific kind of meditation, because the truth is the path is deep and wide. I'd love to explore all of them, but the truth is I haven't tried all of them. I've only tried two practices, and I will share about one today and share about the other next week. So on today's episode, we're going to explore how mindfulness can change your brain, mind, and body. There's actually a book on this. It's entitled How to Change. The book is entitled The Science of Meditation, How to Change Your Brain, Mind, and Body. It's written by Richard Davidson and Daniel Goleman. So if you want to read the book, I will attach a link in the description box. I'll also attach some sources of where I've gotten some of the information that I'm going to share with you today. So let's explore how mindfulness is capable of changing your brain. Mindfulness is believed to change the area or the regions of your prefrontal cortex. So we now know from science that long-term meditators have a thicker region of their brains in the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for helping you accomplish your goals and make goals, but also behaving appropriately within the collective. Now, I may not have have first-hand information in witnessing this, but I do know for sure that I have a clearer mind when I sit down to make goals and plan, or even making decisions, because in the past I've genuinely struggled with indecision, and I think that comes from not being aware or not paying attention to things as they unfold in your life the way that they are. So I do believe that perhaps it changes your brain in some way. But then again, I will attach resources so you can go and figure out for yourself, so you can find all this information that scientists have shared. There's a change that happens in the amygdala. This is the part of your brain that processes stress. So this is your fight, flight, or freeze response. This part tends to be very active in people who have a tendency to be stressed most of the time. So when you start practicing meditation, particularly the ones that this one I have felt on a physical level, I have witnessed within my own body, because this is something I struggled with a lot. So it was a tendency to either run away from things or try and resist whatever is happening in the moment, or basically become what people say, I feel numb. But in thinking about it, can you actually feel numb? I don't think you can feel numb. But we can explore that another time. But so it does help to quiet this region of the brain, which is in that constant fight or flight mode. And this is what science has found. We also have the default mode network. When you start to practice mindfulness, a lot of people don't want to practice any kind of meditation, because they say, Tracy, I'm going to sit there and my mind is racing. And I believe everyone's mind should be quiet. Listen. That is far from the truth, because what happens when you start paying attention is you begin to observe what Eastern philosophy has called the monkey mind. Your mind is constantly jumping from one thing to another, or grasping from one thing to another. So this default mode network is the region of your brain that fires up when your mind is wandering, or when your mind is daydreaming, when you're not present, basically. But there's a way for you to become aware of the daydreaming, for you to become aware of the thinking without getting caught up in it, getting caught up in the drama or the melodrama of the mind, So this is why we come to mindfulness practices. And for anyone out there who's listening, or for anyone who's watching me and thinking, I don't know how to start. I don't know what to do, in which path is right for me. You will have to try different ones to figure out which one works for you. This week, I'm talking about mindfulness best stress reduction, as taught by John Kabat-Zinn. And next week, I'll talk about Vipassana, which is taught by S.N. Goenka. Which are the two kinds of mindfulness, which are the two kinds of meditation that I have practiced. So I will share on a personal level how I've experienced these different kinds of meditation and what changes have happened within my body and within my mind. As a self-report, all I do know is I feel so much better and I have a clearer mind. When I started out, it was not like this. I had stickiness in a lot of areas. There were so many stories I was still telling to myself. There were so many things that I was holding on to. There were so many things that I was pushing away. But now, with the practice of meditation, with the practice of paying attention on purpose, I've started to see some changes in my life, in how I relate to other people, in how I relate with myself, in how I make decisions, in almost every aspect of my life, in my relationship with pain. There are people who go through lots of pain within their physical body and they're not sure how that can be alleviated. Mindfulness will give you a wise relationship with the mind and the body, and now we know that the two are not separate entities but that they influence each other from time to time. Now let's talk about what mindfulness does for you, and I'm just going to talk about two things that I've observed within my own life. Each opportunity is an opportunity for you to investigate the mind and the body, whatever is happening within the mind and whatever is happening within the body. How does this happen? When you sit quietly, and usually people are like, oh, how am I going to take on a lotus position? All that is not necessary. If sitting is even too hard for you, you can lie down on a bed or on a mat. It's just really simple. There's something called the corpse pause, but I would advise, if you're starting out, if this is the first time you're practicing mindfulness, I'd advise that you get a chair where you can sit in an upright position with your feet touching the ground and in a way that feels most comfortable for you. And then start there. Start by observing the natural breath as it is without controlling it. Because you see, when someone tells us to breathe, our first instinct is to try and control the breath, but I'm breathing right now. Everyone who's listening to this podcast is breathing. You can trust that your breath is coming in and it's going out. you know that's the first thing. So when someone tells you to breathe, it's not okay, how do I breathe? Because that's what most of us do. But it's a thing that's natural to you. You came into the world breathing, and so it's something that is of your essence, so you can trust that. And so when you take time to sit down on a chair and observe what's going on within the mind, you don't resist it. I think what mindfulness is you paying attention to what's happening. John Kabat-Zinn calls it choiceless awareness. So you're kind of just watching the drama within your mind. You see how your thoughts are constantly changing. One arises and another arises and another arises. That's how it is. They arise, they pass away. They arise and pass away. And without you grasping onto what's arising and passing away, then you are in fact practicing awareness. You're aware of the melodrama and you're not getting caught up in it. You're not resisting, or you're not holding onto it, or what they call grasping. So now there's an act of non-grasping. You're just paying attention in the present moment on purpose and not forgetting the most essential part of it, non-judgmentally. But also, if this is not something that you have walked through before, of course your mind will grasp onto a certain thought and then keep bringing it up and bringing it up. Now, when you notice that your mind has wandered for a very long period of time, it is up to you to bring back your attention to your breath. You observe your breath again going in and your breath going out. And you have to do this repeatedly. You have to do it in a way that always reminds you to be patient with yourself, to pay attention, because it takes a lot of practice. This is a practice that needs you, or requires of you, to make time for it. This is a practice that requires of you to pay attention and observe life as it is. The other thing that happens when you start to become mindful or when you start to pay attention is when you practice mindfulness, you will notice a lot of relaxation within your mind and your body. This is one of the things that you will achieve with paying attention or with being mindful, is that then you will start to relax even when things are a bit chaotic on the inside. You just see them like passing clouds or like a wave about to touch the shore. You let everything go. It's this is what the practice is also about. So when you're letting everything go, there's no grasping, there's no judgment, there's no resistance. You're basically just falling behind the energy. You're going beyond what is the norm or what is the conditioning of the mind and of the body. Or when you observe pain within the body, our initial instinct is to be reactive of the pain that's going on in the body. And so when you start to practice mindfulness, you will start to feel most of that pain come up. And there's a book that I will also recommend, and perhaps we could read it together and share it as a community. The book is entitled The Body Keeps Score. But before we even get ahead of ourselves, let's get to talking about how I've experienced these states within my own life. So initially, when I started meditating, I didn't come to meditation because life was a bed of roses. That I was having such a fun time in life. And, I thought, this mindfulness meditation thing could be so fun. No, things had gone to the fire, from the pan straight into the fire. And it was a matter of survival. There's an African proverb that says, it's not bravery, but survival that makes a man climb a thorny tree. That was me. I didn't come to mindfulness because life was perfect, because things were falling into place. I came because I needed to come to my senses. I was, to say the least, I felt that I was losing my senses and I needed to return to that point of calmness. I needed to return to that point of clarity. And I had friends around me. I'm grateful for the people who led me here. You know yourself. I'm grateful for the people who told me, hey, there's ways for you to reclaim a home within yourself. There's ways for you to reclaim your sanity. There's ways for you to come to your senses. And at that point, I had tried affirmations in the year 2019. That had its place, but again, it doesn't deal with the deepest parts of the mind. Speaking positively to yourself is great, but then it doesn't allow you to confront the things that you need to confront on a deeper level. And I have nothing against affirmations. They served their purpose in my life at the time. But when I came to practice meditation, I needed to get to the deepest parts of my brain. I needed to get to the deepest parts of the mind, to the deepest parts of what I was actually struggling with. And that's what that gave me. I remember practicing, I remember being in a state of shock one time after I finished practicing my meditation. And it was very interesting. So I would hear my dad outside every morning. He's listening to a sermon. You could call it meta awareness. He's listening to a sermon. At the same time, I'm trying to go within and just, tap into what's happening within my body and within my mind. I remember this particular day. I finished my meditation and my body was shaking. I I'm going to think about it because I recorded it after some time because it persisted for a couple of minutes. I'm going to think about it and see if I can give this to my editor and see if if I can put that short snippet in there so you can see what was happening. It literally, I don't know if you've seen a person who's convulsing, but I was shaking. My hands were shaking. My body was shaking and I didn't know how to stop it. It was so involuntary. And at first I thought, oh my God, you're a freak. What's happening? And then I started to ask around. I started to ask other people about their practices and what they had witnessed. And of course, after going to so many different retreats by now, well, not so many, after going to some retreats, meditation retreats, I now know that this is a normal thing, that it's just energy being released through your body, and it can feel so painful at times. So, in walking this path, I hope you know, or I want to bring it to your awareness or to your attention that it's not going to be an easy path, because it's not a path that deals with something that's superficial. It's a path that deals with the substantial. It's a path that deals with you becoming wise in how you deal with your mind and your body, how you relate with your mind and your body. And so in that sense, no matter what happens, I want to urge you to keep on going, because initially when we start out anything, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, but the rewards are so many. They go beyond even just the two that I have shared. It goes beyond that. There's so many things, and we'll explore them as we keep understanding what this meditation is or what mindfulness is. As we keep exploring together and learning together, you will see that it's so beneficial for you to actually be in wise relationship with who you are, no matter how you are. Mindfulness requires of you to be in wise relationship with everything as it is, the unfolding of events. Um, I was listening to one of the teachers that I followed before, and he said, thinking isn't mindfulness. It's unless you're aware of the thinking, that's different. But thinking in itself eclipses what mindfulness is, because what you're supposed to be doing is paying attention, attending on purpose. And so today, although I do not want to dive into everything, because there's so much to say about mindfulness, there's so much to say about meditation in general, the different parts. But like I said, since today we're here to talk about mindfulness, I want to present to you the attitudinal foundations of mindfulness. And you keep them within your heart and trust that they will give you the results that you're looking for. The first foundation I want to explore is the foundation of non judging. This is in the description of what we say mindfulness is. When you start to pay attention, you will notice how much we are constantly judging ourselves and other people. We constantly make judgments about everything, the things we like, the things we don't like. We we make them a part of our identity. Oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. That in itself is already um, a resistance or an aversion towards something. So if you don't like something, then it means that when it happens, you are not receptive to it happening. I've had people saying, why is this happening to me? Okay, if it's not happening to you, who should it happen to? You know, it makes it feel like, oh, I'm this and that. This should not happen to me. Oh, I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? Nobody ever said that bad things don't happen to good people. And it's such a skewed way of understanding life. So you will notice how you're a prisoner of the things that you like. You will notice how you're a prisoner of the things that you do not like, whether it's people, whether it's things, whether it's events, whether it's things that have happened in the past or things that you believe would be undesirable in your future. In that, all these things that you're creating judgments around are not really happening here. They're happening as a result of experiences you've had in the past, or perhaps dreams that you're constantly ruminating on in the future. So for you to practice mindfulness in the right manner is to be aware of judgment, so that you become non-judging. You start to practice a way of being that just observes life for what it is, without creating narratives around it, without, sometimes we actually meet people, and before we even know who they are, we've already decided that we do not like these people. Perhaps someone just looks like someone that you know from the past, or perhaps someone says something that's triggering to you. And so your mind, before you can even pay attention, your unconscious mind makes associations from your past and says, we don't like this person. And so I'm sure you can see how limited this is, how we limit ourselves on all the experiences that we could have, all the experiences that we could have with other people. Be aware of how to be in a state of non-judging. And that is one foundation. Another foundation I'd like to explore is the foundation of patience. In practicing a way of being that is non-judgmental, you can also get to a place where you're patient with the process. A lot of people, like I already said, will not practice mindfulness because they think the moment I sit down and start to observe my breath, my mind should be blank. The majority of the people you will talk to about how they came to practice any form of meditation is they'll tell you it was a matter of coming to my senses. I needed to return home. And what does returning home mean? Going back within to find insight. Wisdom is insight. Like it's because we're constantly in a world that's always asking us to seek answers outside of us. The ubiquity of information is convincing us that all the answers we're looking for are outside. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for that, but there's these things that we need to sit with in order to find answers, because they're within. They're within and not without. So in practicing mindfulness, you need to keep patience within your heart. You need to know that the process can be slow, it can be painful, and sometimes it might feel like nothing is changing. But believe me, every minute that you take to practice mindfulness changes your life in such deep and transformational ways. Think of it as putting money away in a certain trust or in a certain money market fund, and the money doesn't seem very significant in the beginning, but if you leave it for a longer period of time, it compounds. That's what it is. The more you practice, you're compounding, you're adding to it, you're building your patience without even knowing it. Especially if you start, if you keep the fast foundation that I told you about, the non-judgment, is if you keep that in your heart and you're like, oh, I'm patient with this and I'm not judging I'm not judging my path. I'm staying true to the path, and I'm going to keep showing up no matter what happens. Believe me, you will start to feel the change. But in the same breath, I want to say, do not obsess over where you want to be, because you're already complete as you are. Just keep in mind what kind of goals you'd like to have, but then do not obsess over it. Enjoy the journey, because all the bliss, all the joy is in the journey. If you're paying attention in the present moment, there are those moments where you realize, oh my God, I'm not where I was yesterday. And here I am. Like, I feel certain changes. I see certain changes. I'm aware of certain changes. It even moves beyond a thing of states. It moves beyond just sitting on your chair or sitting on your cushion. And then you start to observe how you are actually changing in the grand scheme of things, how you're changing in how you talk to yourself, in how you talk to other people. So it's this patience. Exercising that patience will teach you a lot about yourself, most importantly. Oh, I don't know how to say this, but impatience was a big one for me, because we have this idea that things should happen within this timeline. But you see, when it comes to healing, the journey is different for everyone. The path is deep and wide. Something might work for me, it might not work for you. So I'm telling you all these things about mindfulness, but I don't know that this will be your path. I'm just sharing what has worked for me and what has worked for many people, and what science has proven to be actually something that's very helpful, especially in the times that we're living in. We're living in a time where there's so much pressure to be something other than who we are. And so taking those moments, either in the morning or in the evening, or even during your days at work, if you feel the tension is rising, it's important for you to take those moments where you can actually just pause and allow yourself to be. We're not taught how to be. And I think that's so essential to the doing. The being is so essential to the doing, because sometimes when you're caught up in the doing, you miss so many of the things that are happening around you. It's so easy to miss opportunities because you're constantly doing. The doing can anchor you in such a way that you are obsessed with that doing. And so exercise patience. And in exercising patience, you also have to remember to employ a beginner's mind. I love this one. I love this one because I think of the fact that, I have a nephew, and every time I'm around him, he teaches me so much. We spend time. It sounds silly. He's an 8-year old, but I love children because of that. They don't pretend to be experts about anything. They're just really impressionable. They want to learn. They're curious. They ask questions. They're like, "Oh, what's that? What's that?" And it's never a thing of, "Oh, I tried this and it failed." I'm always talking to him, and Ihan and I share ideas. So sometimes I'll also ask him how to do something, and then I can see the joy emanating from his heart when I ask him to teach me how to do something. Because it's so rare that, we adults ask children to teach us, and yet I believe they have so much to teach us. And so I'll do something and he'll say, "You see, you're getting better at it." It's just, oh, it's so blissful, and it's so warming to my heart for him to say something like that. And I think so many of us, as we get older, we forget about beginner's mind. We're experts at everything. We know everything. We are so interesting. Adults know everything. But you see, in the mind of the expert, there's so, like the possibilities are limited. But in the mind of a novice, of someone who's a beginner, there's so many possibilities. The pool is so wide, or the ocean is wide enough for them to say, I see where this could work. I see how this could work. Can we explore this? Can we explore that? Always keep beginner's mind. And I think the reason that this is one of the foundations is that it can also become very much like a routine for most people to practice mindfulness. You show up and you sit. And instead of allowing that moment to be something new, let's say yesterday you had a really good meditation. And today, when you sit, you're a bit agitated. And then you say, it was supposed to be this and that. It wasn't supposed to be anything. It's supposed to be just as it is. And today is different from yesterday. And every moment is different and unique in itself. But we do not we do not employ that understanding when it comes to understanding how we practice, let's say, mindfulness or anything for that matter in your work. If you feel like you've gotten to expert level, I urge you to get back to the point where you are still open to the possibility. You're aware that perhaps you have built up and stacked up so much to call you an expert, but also open your mind up to new possibilities, because it's in employing that way of being, like where you're open-minded, that you're able to see what you could have missed if you were so anchored and grounded in what you know to be true and what the path is. There are multiple paths. There are so many ways to solve a problem. There are so many different ways to look at things. And so if you see yourself as an expert, then in that way, your knowing can anchor you in such a way that you do not look beyond thyself. You do not look beyond what you know. There's no there's no reason for you to peek over, say, the horizon, like John Kabat-Zinn says, because you are so anchored in what you know. And what you know can also be very, very blinding. So open your mind up. Always, every time you decide to practice mindfulness, remember that I'm doing this for the first time. I mean, you know that you're not doing it for the first time, but it has to be like you're doing it for the first time. Because if then it feels like a continuation of something, you're going to start attaching to states instead of working towards changing your traits. Yes. And in the bid to change our traits, there's a need for us to also think about the foundation of acceptance. This is a big one. I know a lot of people who are probably listening to this podcast are like, oh, Tracy, I want to be better. I want to do this. I want to do that. We all want to change in ways that are deeply transformational. We all want to live in harmony with who we are and with other beings. But it's important for you to accept yourself the way that you are. This is something that John emphasizes a lot, even in his book, The Healing Power of Mindfulness, A New Way of Being. And again, he has written so many books on mindfulness. I haven't read all of them, but that's the one I've read. And he emphasizes you being accepting of who you are, because this need to become something other than what you are. It's already a vote against who you are today. You're saying, I don't like this person. That in itself is already a judgment. This is not what this practice is for. And if that's what you want to use it for, then this is not the practice for you. This practice is about getting in wise relationship with yourself. And I'm thinking of the words of the Zen Buddhist Shunryu Suzuki, who said, all of you are perfect the way that you are, but you could use a little improvement. If you keep that at the back of your mind, it's, I know I'm not who I want to be. I know I'm not where I want to be. I haven't walked through all the cracks that I've created over time. I haven't walked through the conditioning. But you know what? I accept those parts of me and I'm bringing them to the light. I want to walk through them without necessarily attaching to the past or to the future, just observing them for what they are in this moment. In that way, if you accept them, and not on an intellectual level, not on a level that is just happening within your head or within your mind, on a level that is true to your being, in your heart, you accept the light and the darkness within you, and then you sit with it and allow it to transform on its own with you paying attention on purpose, attending every moment. And I like mindfulness because it goes beyond the seating. It goes into the talking. So let's say I was I was learning a mindfulness practice that has to do with listening, which is wait. Again, if you see all these things, they're tied into each other. Now, wait is an acronym, which is why am I talking? So it's the same thing in this moment. You have to accept and wait for the transformation. Don't judge it. Don't try and create ideas around what you would like it to be. You will get there when you get there. The only way to get there is from here. But if here is something you're resisting, or if here is something that you're averse to, then there is no point. There is no way for you to get there to some other place. By the way, there does not exist. Ah, this is such a paradox, but there does not exist. You know what's crazy? I like that we as human beings always make plans, but then the truth is, none of us actually know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's good for us to make plans, and don't get me wrong, that has its place in society. It has its place in our own personal development. I mean, you have to have a plan. I was about to say, no and a plan, but for the international audiences, yes, that means you have to have a plan. But in accepting yourself, you also get to a point where you're not striving. You practice non-striving in the sense that you're trying to get there from here, but you do it in a way that does not employ strife. It's I want to get there, but here is also fine. And so we've explored the foundations of mindfulness. We've talked about how mindfulness can change certain regions of your brain. We've also talked about what mindfulness is. We've also talked about the foundations of mindfulness. What we haven't talked about is how to practice. And so I want to take you through a mindfulness practice, but keeping in mind that even next week, we'll be exploring another form of meditation. And even when we explore that, I will be teaching you about how to be in wise relationship with this moment as it is, attending on purpose. And I think you should keep those words in mind: attention, purpose, and being non judgmental. If you're not engaged at the moment and perhaps you're not doing any other activity that requires of you to maybe be operating a car or something or a machine, I invite you to join me for a mindfulness exercise. And if you're not able to do this now, you can go back to it within your own time and listen to the podcast. And I invite you in this moment to find a place that is quiet, where you can sit with your back upright, or where you can lie down. It can be in your bed or on a mat, whatever it is that feels more comfortable for you. I invite you to close your eyes gently. Observe the breath going in. Observe the breath going out. Observe the breath going in. Observe the breath going out. Without any strife, allow the breath to be as it is in this moment. I invite you to trust in your own trustworthiness. And if you don't trust, then trust that. Observe the breath going in. Observe the breath going out. Observe where you feel the breath. Is it in your belly? Do you feel the rising and the falling of your stomach? If there are any thoughts in your mind, observe them non-judgmentally. This is called choiceless awareness. It's good to understand the nature of your mind. The stream of thoughts are not rushing in because of the practice. This is the nature of your mind every day. You're only able to observe it now because you're paying attention on purpose. So allow it to be as it is. Is your breath deep or is it shallow? Is it warm? Is it hot? Is it cold? Just observe this moment as it is. How long can you hold your breath? Can you exhale until you feel it at the bottoms of your feet? Can you inhale until you feel it at the top of the head? Are you still with the breath, or has the mind wandered? Allow it to be. In order for any change to happen, all repression and suppression must be circumvented. Allow life to unfold the way that it is, no matter how it is. This is how we grow in wise relationship with our being. This is how we learn to employ a healthy perspective. Continue to breathe in and out. And if you can't feel your breath anywhere, then inhale deeply and exhale deeply to concentrate the mind, to bring you to the present. All that we need is in the present. If there are thoughts about the past, allow them to flow. Watch them like passing clouds. If there are any thoughts about the future, allow them to be too. Watch them like a passing cloud. This is an act of friendliness with oneself. Just breathe. When we inhale, we allow for peace to come in. And when we exhale, we allow for release. Inhale for 4. Hold for 3. Exhale for 8. Inhale for 4. Hold for 3. Exhale for 8. Breathe. Breathe deeply. Allow your attention to return to this moment with the normalcy of your breath. Gently open your eyes. Thank you for joining me today on Refined for the Mind. My name is Tracy Kabat-Zinn, and I look forward to yet another episode with you next week on Thursday.